there, beloved Ascension pioneers, and welcome to my Ascension update. And this update, I really want to focus on the Aquarian Age and what it really means as we're stepping deeper into that energetic field that is inviting us to really become sovereign in our own essence. So, as you know, there's a lot of people now talking about the fact of us entering the Aquarian Age, and yet, you know, the Aquarian Age and all of the ages are always already precisely determined by the greater cycles of nature of life. And if you know the Yuga cycles and how they flow, you would also understand the level of the starting of a certain point in creation. Let's say that we take this planetary existence where we are now, and the evolution of soul not really being the same as the evolution of this creation experience, and yet it kind of can correspond to it because we're all one in what's taking place in this part of creation. So when we understand this, we understand then how through that development of our sovereign self, first we start the nature of descension so that we can start the nature of ascension, because as souls move into the very fabric of reality, when they explore the realms of creation, they move out into the density. If you understand the very nature of eternal self, of our eternal source, and the infinite nature of creation, you would understand that in the 0 point where all life is still, where all is mere source, where all is pure potential, and as we make concentric circles around that source, you know, when we draw a line through each of those circles, we see that, you know, as the time that we perceive on a certain aspect is not going to be the same time that's going to be perceived in the more external realms of creation. And, you know, you might have seen this in the movie about space, when they move out into different realities, and they say time there is different. So only a few minutes is maybe years and years here as it is perceived on our Earth. So what's taking place is that we have an innate understanding of this relativity through objectivity. So as we move into the Age of Aquarius, it's going to become very important that we start to develop this sovereign, individualized self, because through the mere aspect of darkness, because our minds were already developed before in great golden ages, but the populace, the mass of the populace was still being filtered through, let's say, certain elders and those who had the knowledge before, because through each existence the elders kind of prepared the space so that the other souls can there start this, you know, their own evolutionary journey. But everything always starts with the incubation phase, you know, with the birthing of a child. It's also the same. And first it's soft in a cocoon, resting in the mother's womb. You know, once the child is born, it enters this new space. Everything is new, it's pure innocence. And yet the child has to learn things, you know, through its own sovereignty when it comes to that age of maturity. And this is kind of where we are now. Because before, in the previous ages, we didn't yet have the full understanding that came through us, because we were a part of this mass of something that was set for us, and yet the mere understanding that was not on that level led us to the fall. So now when we're starting to get our divine remembrance back, and we're still you know, kind of maybe in the old, but yet we're already feeling those seeds. They're penetrating our awareness, and we're being more and more cosmic in our openness. So this is how we're starting to receive. And yet, when I ask Spirit, what is really important to share at this time is the very nature of our own perception. So this is what the Aquarian Age is all about. This is what Spirit showed me, because a lot of the people say we're moving into this Aquarian Age and this is how it will be, and yet, you know, the objective reality is still very much generalized. Because I've mentioned before the evolution of soul and then the evolution of a certain type of creation, let's say in this planetary existence, is never the same thing. Because you also have very ancient and wise souls who already have the knowledge, and they still come to this reality, because there's always kind of like a cycling of a great balance to be needed here on this planet. There's always a certain number of avatar beings here on this planet. You know, even they themselves don't always know who they are, and there's always this great balance so that the world can be, regardless of the state of creation and which cycle, that the world is still in balance, that it's still held in the cosmic nature of all. So this soul evolution and our consciousness evolution in this realm right now doesn't always correspond, because you have pioneering souls, you have souls that we call voluntary souls, for example. They don't need to be here, but they still here, and they still take upon a part of that fragment of reality. They still have to experience, and yet their consciousness is more expanded, and that's why they assist those who are moving maybe for the first time through those cycles and their own evolution of the soul through the evolution of this creation we're being, offered right now, which is a natural cycle of life. It's something much greater than we can actually comprehend at this time, and it's just, it's always held within the greatness of our cosmic self and the alpha and omega of everything. So the Aquarian Age is all about really becoming evolved in our discerning nature of in our sovereignty, in our own perspective, because the Aquarius, we all represented with this thought waves and patterns, which means that we all need to learn how we receive from spirit. What is our own individual connection to spirit? Because in the age of Pisces, it was all about dogmas and religion. You need something outside of you that you feel you have value, that your world makes sense. In the Aquarian nature, things don't have to make sense, but because you perceive them, they already do, because you are source, and whatever you perceive is already a fragment of the reality of the totality in itself. Even though it's a fragment, it's an extension of source, it's a particle, and yet that particle is a part of the whole. So as we move deeper into this age, it's very important for us to start trusting what we are sensing. A part of my new webpage will be also self-mastery classes. These are going to be courses that help us along our self-mastery for those who are going to be specially inclined and guided to go deeper. And the first course I already recorded is about our own spirit alignment and how do we relate to spirit, how does spirit speak and commune through us. There are certain truths that just spirit is how it is, its nature, but how we conduct it, how we attune to it, that is the very fabric of our own reality. So the Aquarius nature is that absolute truth, which before we wanted to filter through the dogma and beliefs in order to make sense. It's now going to become enough when we just filter it through our own experience and our own mental alignment and our own personal thought waves, how we think. We don't need to judge it, it's already that way. A lot of times we watch these videos or channelings and we say these thought patterns, we need to transcend them, they're old, they're stagnant. Yes, they can be, because what it means is they're stagnant, that there's no movement. When the soul expands, there always needs to be expansion that happens through movement. And yet it's not bad, it's not negative. A lot of times we move into that perspective of, oh, it's bad to have these patterns, I need to change something. So again, we start spinning around this wheel that makes us do things through a sense of need, or we need to be like others who are maybe doing that work. We need to belong to a part of the group. Although Aquarius in its nature does represent community as well, in order for us to move into these communities, I've shared this before, is we need to have a deep sense of the self with a capital S. Where do we relate in our own creation self? How does spirit flow through us? What is our own very nature of purpose? So without seeking the purpose, we just live our purpose. We're no longer the seeker. We're the one who has developed this potential to trust itself. And when you trust, you no longer need to seek. Everything finds you. So the very fabric of reality is filtered through you in your own unique way. And yet when it is, you give others an emanation of what you already embody. And so they can tune into that as well, but not in tuning how we used to do it before. Somebody shares online, oh, I need this, I need healing and prayer, I'm sick. And in this previous ages, it was, especially the last few years when this informational technology was most developed, there was this nature of us always filtering things through needing to belong, seeking that confirmation and assistance outside of us, and without just feeling that need, that we're already sharing ourselves just by being okay with where we are. And when we do that of need, or when we crave love on the outside, and when sometimes there's almost this obsessive sharing ourselves so that everybody can also see what we're doing in our life, in terms of, I'm sick, I have this illness, please help me, send me prayers, I'm here, look at myself. There's one aspect of being open and vulnerable, but everything that's really taking place for you is your soul calling out to you. We forgot about this intimate part of reality. It's your intimate experience. The Aquarius age, because it's very much connected with the thought waves and things, that's greater awakenings. It doesn't mean now that you now need to share every single thought you have, every single inner communication and conversation you have with Spirit, because some things are just for you. So we need to learn that trust. You know, where I am is okay. I can be open and vulnerable without the need to constantly share myself so that I get approval or confirmation and outer love. It's sometimes these things that we do, we feel they're right, we feel okay, we're being more open that way, but a lot of times we can shift to the more, how would I call this? It's not negative, it's not anything like that. It's just giving our power away. And what happens at that time, let's say somebody really does that on a very much excessive level, then you have thousands of people who follow that, who are also starting to plug into their own conscious experience to the conscious experience of that individual. So where is individuality in that sense? We already had that with dogmas and, you know, you have a prayer ritual and then thousands of people in mass, you know, they get plugged into that. So they give their consciousness to that. So we really have to start being discerning of where we're giving off our consciousness or when we're really being just present with our consciousness. What is conscious for us? What is unfolding for us at this time? Let's say astrology. We have certain astrological alignments, and an astrologer might say, this means this and that. Okay, it might, but it's still really relative. And I mean, it's very much generalized. A lot of times we might read aspects about even our own nature and astrology and our own blueprints, but some things are just too generalized, and we feel our soul craves more, it wants more. Again, that's the part of Aquarian Age. You can't get more without really being intimate with your own individuum. So the individuum is that which leads to a healthy community, not distorted community. We know why all the most of the commune projects failed is because people gave their power off in the commune. They couldn't find apart how they relate to the whole, so they lost the sense of the self. The new individualized self is not losing yourself. You can feel oneness, and yet you still have your own perception, and you have your own filter of source without those distorted filters that sometimes come through external programming or you tapping into something collective that you don't, for example, even need to connect to. There's maybe those who will, because they relate to that, and sometimes when you watch something, you're already giving a part of your consciousness there. And you're attuning to that without even thinking you're participating in it, and yet you are. So in this Aquarian Age, it's all about the sovereignty, this integral self, coming back to wholeness so that we can build communities that are really out of that purity of love and your individuality that comes from oneness, not you seeking something outside of you as a part of being in a commune. That's not the same. It doesn't always come through that love of self-acceptance and being, you know, a being of your own nature. Because if we have, for example, a planetary alignment, the crucial question is, how does it affect you in your life right now, this pivotal point where you are? It might not be the same as for others. We have generalized guidelines. These are all happening, and yet your soul has a unique patterning within its own evolutionary nature. And through that patterning, your soul evolves. Not by tapping constantly into what somebody else might share as, you know, sometimes we feel this need because somebody says, I'm sick. And we plug into it, and unconsciously we actually contribute to the part of their belief that says, I'm sick, and yet they're not in truth. So a lot of times these collective pluggings into are not really serving our true nature of wholeness. They serve this distorted perceptions and illusions. So we really need to become the sovereigns, and that's what Spirit showed me. It's very much important. And also, I mentioned astrology these past few days, or maybe even weeks. I was so guided to explore more. But my interest in it, it's not that, you know, that personal horoscope astrology that most are interested in, but these greater alignments. And what Spirit showed me is because the planets have their own motions as well, because the Earth is not static. You know, Nassim Haramein already shared that we're not, you know, Earth is not rotating around the sun and it's all static. It's all moving through the cosmos. So that's why we're moving through this photonic belt right now. And on this level, it might seem so. On a greater level, there's even greater movement unfolding. And yet, at the same time, everything already also unfolds through, I mean, it revolves around the great central sun. So there is oneness, there is unity, there is this absolute truth. But the particles, this filtered reality where we are experiencing right here, right now, through our own point of perspective, through our own filtered perception, is this. It's our reality right now. It's what is relative here for us. It's what is relevant also for us. So Spirit showed me how it's really important that we all learn that our own astrology, our own nature, that we get empowered, because knowledge brings power. Knowledge means power, and the power brings you the element that propels you towards change. So this Aquarian age will be more about each becoming our own sovereigns, our own masters, getting informed from within. That doesn't mean you don't seek sometimes assistance out of you, but you can seek that assistance without giving someone power over your life. You know, you don't expect, for example, an astrologer to give you every single detail that you feel then, okay, through that detail maybe I get knowledge so that I make a choice. No, first you need to be sovereign enough to make your own choice. That's the new age. And these are just almost like complementary assessments and, you know, getting confirmations, what you already feel inside. So in this new age, everybody will have this knowledge. Everybody's going to start to be more expanded in how they think, how they feel, how they perceive guidance. And this is what will make us feel more whole, because how can you feel whole when you think somebody has something you don't, you know, and you compare your evolutionary cycle with somebody else? It's time to really stop doing that, because it's not getting us anywhere. And the whole point of this fall and moving through the dark ages was to feel this disconnect from the totality of all, so that then you find it through your own I amness, that you discover it, so that you have the power. And when you do, you're filtered by nothing else, just pure source. And then anything externally, you can't give it power, because your first connection always flows through source, through your own individual experience of it. And that is the true nature of the Aquarian age. And that doesn't mean now everybody will actually align with that. Some souls might not be ready. They will jump off the wheel. They will start their own wheel somewhere else. And maybe there are souls who feel sometimes too mature for this, but they're here to assist others. When they complete this part of assistance, they might move somewhere else, assist on a new level. And those who are completing their own mastery here on this level now will also become guides when the age progresses more and more towards the golden age. It's how a natural cycle of life and creation just goes. It's so beautiful, it's so bigger than what we imagine most of the time. And this Aquarian age is going to help us to see this greatness, this greater, bigger picture. And my new page will also be a lot about the Seraphim, which is the original divine creation self of all of us. And you know, they really encourage me to share about this, because this is also a part that we need to develop, that we find this inner sovereignty. A lot of times I still notice people repeat what others do, and they filter their reality through what somebody else is doing, and yet maybe it's not their path, you know. And this Aquarian age will be all about finding your own inner resources, because you need to start something very unique, individual, something very primal to your own nature. And this is very much related to this and where we are now. And those of us and those of you who are feeling this, you're moving along with the galactic cycle. And this is great, because the new journey begins that way. And yet for those of us for those of you who maybe feel you're already, in a way, you already embodied that, remember, sometimes I see souls who say, I don't feel I belong here, and I already have this and this knowing, is they forget that they're here to share themselves, not to give off of themselves, but to share themselves, because this is how this is to whole. And instead of finding this boredom in a place of lack, nothing's good for you here right now, you feel you don't belong, find a space where you can inspire, so that things transpire and move into a new transcendental age. So this is what Spirit guided me to share today. Remember, nurture your uniqueness, nurture your sovereignty. It is who you are. It is what you can the most contribute with this new age. And remember, even what I share, and when I say, okay, we're moving through this energy, this is becoming, if that doesn't resonate with you at this time, if you don't feel it, or you're just trying to feel it because you feel everybody else is there now you need to be as well, forget that part. Find your own sovereign part. Find a place of resonance that suits you. Because again, it's what I'm doing is I'm not telling you that, okay, this is how it is and it's set in stone. It's still an individual experience. So find that space of individuality within what others might represent as a collective or a galactic movement, in terms of calling it like that. And find your own space, because a lot of times people write to me and they say, I'm not experiencing this, or people say they're experiencing that, why am I not? And this comparison really is just self-sabotaging, and it's restrictive, and it's limiting. And instead of blossoming into what we are now, we start racing with time. This is not a race. This Aquarian age is not about a race. You know, we're not racing anywhere. We're just developing something. And remember, when you develop a skill, sometimes it takes much practice that you come into that mastery. And sometimes it brings with challenges, and those challenges help you to expand. So take it as that journey. in the old age, we were so fixated on outcomes and goals, and you know, that needs to change, because this really doesn't help us to live in the moment and create what is coming through our own sovereign nature at this time. So embrace yourself in full totality where you are. That is the new age, and it was already planted back in the 60s. Remember, the musical Hair already had the song, it's the age of Aquarius, right? And in the 60s, this Pluto-Uranus movements were already seeding this energy, and it needed some time, you know, to gestate and to really adjust and to now flourish into life. And with this new galactic cycle now, it's really starting to more materially coming into form, and this is where we're feeling it. And these 7 alignments of Pluto and Uranus also pivoted for that movement. So enjoy, as always. So much love, wisdom, and power. If you have any questions, you know where to find me, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.